Good morning. How are you all today? Really good to be here with you. It's a bit late. It's a bit late. It's a bit chilly. Is that why it's a bit late? Because it's just a bit colder, so it's took a bit to get me engine going, I suppose. Let's get the Facebook people involved. Takes an extra click to get the Facebook people involved. So here we are. We're on Facebook as well now, so that's really good. I love this. I love the fact it goes to lots of places. I should incorporate Twitter in it as well, shouldn't I? Really, just go to many places. So yeah, it's all good here at this end. I hope it is with you. There's sometimes when sometimes I contemplate things, something jumps out at me, and I think I'll talk about that. And other times I spend the periods in between doing these. It was only a couple of days, so it's not long. Or sometimes I kind of collect things in a little note on my iPhone to say, well, when I've got nothing that goes bang, I'll talk about a bunch of these things. And so I went into there and had a quick look, and there were lots of really little nuggets of information. I sometimes save maybe a TikTok or a Instagram reel or something like that, and then I have a look at them and I think, yeah, they're really good things. They resonated with me. I'm not just collecting them for something to say. Do you know what I mean? They're the kind of things that resonated with me. So I just had to delve into there. Because I couldn't really think of something specific that had cropped up. Other than I've been keeping a diary journaling, and that's really good. I'm really enjoying that. I've journaled on and off, I suppose. Generally, when we go and have holidays or something like that, I think, right, I'll keep a journal of this holiday, and that works. But this time I've decided to get, mainly because my memory's not as hot as it was. I'm being completely honest. I've started keeping a bit of a journal so that I can look back and go, what was that thing we watched? What was that thing? Where's that place we went? What did we do? All that kind of stuff. Because as you get a bit older, it's harder to remember those things. So anyway, I am doing that. But there was a few things that struck me, and I've tried to kind of collect some of these together. And the first one, well, to do with problems, stress, and lack of control, as most of what I talk about is, I suppose. And the first one that really struck me is happiness, because we all strive for happiness, don't we? That's what we're after. We're after just being happy, aren't we? Whatever that is to you, be different to you than it is to me, but that's what we're all after, aren't we, really? Maybe content is a better word. I don't know, just content with your lot, because happiness is I feel happiness is a kind of loaded word, maybe. I don't know. Because we're sold happiness, aren't we, I suppose? Or people try to sell us happiness. Have this, do that. Whereas we kind of maybe need to find it internally. But anyway, this quote, which resonated with me, and these quotes resonate in certain sets of circumstances and not in others. So I get that. So I might say this and it might not resonate with you. That's because you're a beautiful individual in the same way as I am. Happiness is not the absence of problems. It's the ability to deal with them. And I think that's so true, isn't it? I think we think we've got some right to a problem-free life. So then when we get problems, we think, I've got a problem. Why do I get all the problems? Now, some people get dealt a pretty poor hand and have more problems than other people. But there's one thing for certain is we all have problems from time to time. And there are little pockets of life, aren't there, where you seem to have lots of problems, and little pockets of life where you don't seem to have problems. I've just thought of the Stoic philosophy thing. I think it's the Stoic philosophers, this too will pass. It's a great kind of mantra of mine. When things are difficult, when I'm having a bad day or the week's really hectic or whatever, and I think back to previous times in my life where things have been, where there have been a few more serious sorts of problems, this too will pass. So happiness is not the absence of problems. It's more about having the ability to deal with them. And that comes to that final word in the title of today's thing, which is about control. And I think having control, I think if your life is not under your direction and your control, I can completely see, again, thinking about some examples from my past, I can completely see how that would undermine your ability to kind of deal with stress and the problems that life throws at you. If the problems are somehow within your gift to control, or you can find a way to control them, then maybe that fuels happiness. However, the Stoics also say that we just have to accept the things that we can't control. And I think that's also an important message, isn't it? But anyway, that resonated with me, that happiness is not the absence of problems, it's the ability to deal with them. And I do think we need to, our locus of happiness is inside, not out there, isn't it? We don't find happiness out there, we find happiness in here. So in a sense, I'm oversimplifying this, but in a sense, whatever's going on out there, we can be happy or content or relaxed with it, or whatever words you want to use, if we're in control of in here. This idea of control starts in here, I feel. And yes, we need to control our environments. Lots of us work in workplaces where control is problematic, or the workplace is problematic. But if we start with control in here, it's the thing I was talking about last week, isn't it? We try to control time, but what we need to be doing is controlling our stress response, and we do that by being in control internally. So there you go. And I found this one interesting. I don't know what you think of this. I'm deliberately going to say this because I'm not sure how I feel about it. Okay, because it seems to suggest do more, but maybe it doesn't either. You're not stressed because you're doing too much. You're stressed because you're not doing enough of what makes you feel alive. I think that's fair enough. I also think it's a bit problematic because one of the problems is people don't feel they've got time to do the things that make them feel alive. So I was like thinking that through, and I was thinking, well, what does that mean? Because it seems to encourage you to say, yeah, keep doing all that stuff, but you need to do more of the stuff that makes you feel alive, man. Do all of that stuff as well. Well, you can't. But it made me think about how cautious we have to be with how we use our time. I don't dismiss things like social media or watching some tacky series on Netflix. I don't dismiss those things because I think they're great. I think they're helpful. I've become a little obsessed with TikTok, and I'm having to control that. So I don't look at it apart from at a particular point in the day for a particular length of time. And I go on there 10 minutes, have a flick through loads of largely meaningless stuff. Although increasingly the algorithm at work again in these things, I'm increasingly finding it's throwing up stuff that I find really interesting. So, you play with it for long enough. I suppose that's one of the advantages of these algorithms that find us out. As long as you're not having adverts tailored to you, being forced into buying things that you think will make you happy because they won't. Buying things doesn't make us happy. Gives us a halo effect. We're happy for the moment we buy it and a few moments after that, but then it just becomes another thing, cluttering our house up. So I think there's something in that, but the caveat to that, the thing we have to then consider is, well, where do we find the time to do the things that make us feel alive? And I think that's where we have to be very, very cautious. I always have the people in my head who are parents, because I've been a parent, and I know that you have very little time because you're being a parent. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. I mean, it's just inevitable that as a parent, that's what you have to do. So there's less time for you to do the things you might want to do because you're having to do all those other things that go with being a parent. And that's a wonderful, beautiful responsibility. And that's a beautiful thing to do and be part of. So that has to be the thing that makes you feel alive, I suppose, doesn't it? The fact you've got this life to encourage and foster and what have you. So there's all of that, but you can also find time to do stuff that makes you feel alive as well. So the point of that is get to the point, Stephen. The point of that is that in order to do more of the stuff that makes us feel alive, so we feel less stressed, we have to be really cautious about how we use our time. And I think we have to be really critical of ourselves about how we use our time. I'm a big fan of the whole thing, the best way to find time later in the day is to start the day earlier. So if you're going to start the day earlier, you've got to get your sleep. So you've got to go to bed earlier. And I'm always a fan of saying, it's 10 o'clock. Should we watch another episode of this thrilling Netflix series? That'll be there forever and you don't have to watch it at night. Or should we ditch that, go to bed and get up at 6 and have an hour at the start of the day that we wouldn't have normally had? And believe me, and it's borne out in a lot of the literature, is the hour between 6 and 7, for example, is worth much more to you than the hour of Netflix between 10 and 11 in terms of your well-being and your stress management and your ability to maybe do something that makes you feel, alive, to use that quote. So there was that, and then the other thing that struck me, which I'll finish with, is that this was on Instagram, I think, and it was 3 things that cause stress. And the 3 things that it said cause stress, and this resonates with me, are uncertainty, lack of information, and loss of control. Uncertainty, lack of information, and loss of control. And actually, the uncertainty and loss of control thing are kind of bedfellows, aren't they? They kind of operate together. And actually, sometimes we feel uncertain because there's a lack of information. I think that's a big thing in the workplace. I talk to social work students and social workers who are in their initial stages of their careers about this when I get the chance. And it's about saying, if you've been asked to do something and you're uncertain about what it is, do not leave that room or that call until you are certain, because you're then just going to go away and fester and think, oh, I don't really know what to do. And what you then do is you put it off. You think, oh, I'll find out later. I'll go and ask somebody else what it might be that I've just been asked to do. Not just saying, no, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. I don't know what you want me to do. So anyway, uncertainty. So we need to create certainty, because certainty creates control. We can create certainty through information, either by getting information from other people about what we need to do, or going and finding that information for ourselves. And we create certainty that way by getting the information we need. Then we're certain about what it is that we want to do, certain about how we're going to do it. And then that makes us feel more in control. So that's that's the managing time bit at the end, isn't it? Now, if something's uncertain, if there's a lack of information and you don't feel in control of it, your reaction to that is going to be a stressful one if you haven't started by managing your response to stress, your biological response to stress first. So we're all the way back, as themes develop through these things, isn't it? We're all the way back to manage your stress response first, then manage your energy, then manage your time. So we're all the way back to, I think, a week on Monday, aren't we? So there you go. When it comes to problems, happiness is not the absence of problems, it's the ability to deal with them. You're not stressed because you're doing too much. You're stressed because you're not doing enough of what makes you feel alive. And the way to do that is be very critical of what you're doing with your time. Are you doing the best? Because if you choose to do one thing with your time, then you're effectively choosing not to do other things, because there is so much that we need to do and so much that we want to do. So if you do something, you are choosing not to do all of those other things. So we have to be careful with that, and then make sure to be as stress-free as possible. Manage your stress response, but then make sure you are certain about things. Make sure you've got all the information you need, and make sure you foster a sense of both internal control and external control of all the things that are in your sphere of responsibility that you're responsible for. All right, I'm going to go. Take care. I can see no reason why I won't be here on Friday. So I'll see you then. Take care.